Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going to be going over the next episode of Road to 1.0, the series where I take a build from level 1 and push it all the way to the first empowered shade so I can collect a bunch of different information about season starters for the next season in Last Epoch. This episode is going to be focused around Lightning Crit Swipe Beastmaster. So the first question I'm going to answer, because I'm going to get 20,000 different questions about it, is how does this build compare to Crit Swipe Lightning Werebear? Well, Beastmaster has a lot more access to damage in general. The aspect system makes Beastmaster out DPS the Werebear version significantly so, very noticeably so. But the Werebear version will still be superior for most content in the game as it gets way tankier because of the nature of it being a druid. Because, in Last Epoch right now, you're kind of punished for investing into damage, as with the way that the game works, it's very much so a ZHP meta. So investing into damage isn't really that good. Unless if you stay around 400, 500 corruption, then like everything is balanced around there. So of course, this is going to be Lightning Crit Swipe Beastmaster. So I'm going to also as well, I'm going to point out as well, I tried leveling as Swipe specifically, like through the campaign. I tried leveling with Swipe, and let me tell you, oh boy, it is so much better just to play with totems and then respec into Crit Swipe much later down the line. I would say around when you hit level 50 and you get access to all 5 specializations, you could swap into Lightning Swipe Crit and be fine. But early on, oh boy, it is so not worth it. It's so much better just to focus on totems early on, mainly because of how much damage they do in comparison to everything else. And that was the main issue of me trying to level as Swipe. So definitely do not level Swipe, level something else. So there won't be a leveling section this time around because I'm going to have to fix it myself and make a new leveling guide for it. But yeah, so Lightning Crit Swipe Beastmaster. The idea of the build is to utilize the newly buffed Swipe from the other patch ago and do a very large amount of lightning crit damage. Now, thankfully, with the changes, you can actually convert Swipe all the way to lightning damage with enough investment in the tree, which means, of course, all of the new adaptive melee changes will work in our favor, meaning all of those weapons that have a bunch of melee physical or used to now actually just give us a bunch of flat lightning. And let me tell you, oh boy, that's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage. So I played this build all the way back in a few patches ago. It was like a year or a year and a half ago. And essentially, the idea was to just use as much melee flat on the prefixes as possible and ignore the melee physical. But now we can just get all of the melee lightning. And trust me, this means that we're going to be doing significantly more damage than before, even though we were already doing so much damage that I literally recorded a clip of the Lightning Crit Swipe Beastmaster, and I used it as educational material for anyone who ever asked me what the heck is Bostiar? Like, what is Bostiar? How does it work? Well, what I would do is I would just take a clip of that build and send it to them, and they would understand immediately because, like I said, you'd start at like 20k crits on Orbis and then stop all the way at 5k crits, almost a quarter of your damage less. Like, it's insane how much Bostiar affects builds like this specifically that hit a lot and do a lot of damage. And this build is no stranger to that either. I was literally triggering Bostiar on the first empowered shade I was doing. That is insane. To trigger Bostiar on the first empowered shade on a solo character like this with no damage investment whatsoever other than shit I picked up off the ground, that is an achievement nonetheless, and it is an achievement held by Lightning Crit Swipe Beastmaster and a few other builds. There's a few other builds that can do it. Wandering Spirits can do it. But this is definitely one of the most noticeable like examples of it. So that's funny. Hopefully one day they'll rework Bostiar to make it much less prejudice against builds that I play like this. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the idea of the build. We abuse stuff like aspect stacking, like Aspect of the Shark, giving us a lot of generic percent melee damage right now. I'm only like level 70 something in the footage. I think actually 80 now. And I have well over 800% increased melee damage while, fighting enemies. That is a lot of percent damage. That is way more percent damage than a lot of different builds get. And that is literally from my gear, and not from my gear, from my passive tree and all that. My gear is not contributing to my damage whatsoever in that regard. So we have so much percent damage everywhere on our skill tree and all that, and so much attack speed that, and of course we're also capping our crit thanks to all the crit support that we get from like Frenzy Totem, and we also get it from Warcry as well. All of this means that all of our affixes on our gear can all just be invested into attunement stacking. Why are we attunement stacking? Well, the first things off, it makes it so that our summon wolf actually gets some HP percentage. I have like probably like 50. I can't remember, to be honest. I played this a few days ago. It's like that's a decent amount of minion health for a wolf, right? But also as well, in Swipe, there is a node that gives you 2% lightning penetration per attunement you have. This means if you stack to like well over 100 attunement, which is very easy to do with this build probably, right? That is 200% penetration. So on top of course, the 800% increased melee damage, the crit cap, all the crit multi we get, we also have 200% lightning penetration. Yeah, this build's going places. So I think we're going to have so much damage and so much like affixes on our gear safe with the way that the build is set up and so much attack speed that we could very easily swap to a one-hander and a shield and go full chonk everywhere and be really tanky, and hopefully we can compete with the Druid overlords. But sadly that might not be the case, as Aspect of the Boar might be getting a little bit of a nerf next patch. I want to be honest with you guys, it's not looking good for our Beastmaster friend, as of course Mike has been talking about it in the Ask the Dev section about talking about Beastmaster and possible nerfs to Aspect of the Boar. But the thing is, if they nerf Aspect of the Boar, they nerf the entirety of Primalist. So hopefully that they do it in a tactful way and totally not exactly like how they nerf Surf and Strike, right? So that's going to be it for the discussion for the build today. We're going to go in game and talk about it in more detail. Also, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as that's the best way of supporting me currently. All right, so here we are in game with the character. So let's just talk about Swills. For Swipe, here we have 1 point to Stormclaw. This is pretty cool, although like it doesn't really help us too much because we attack so much, right? Then 5 points into Unjal's Guidance. If you have 5 points into this, it makes it so that Swipe loses its physical tag, which means it no longer divides your melee damage between your physical and of course your lightning, right? Which is very, 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 very important, right? As it means that we can do a lot more lightning damage, right? Then 1 point into Storm Scour. We have a lot of attunement right now, 39. That is 80% penetration. That is way more penetration than most crit builds ever get. So that's one of the benefits of playing Swipe, baby. Then 3 points into Wrath of the Wilds for 30% more damage, essentially, right? All we're shocking things, which is very easy. 2 points traveled away of the hunt, although that health reach is really nice. 4 points into Wingarian Reach. We really want the area with our Swipe because it'll make our clear much better, right? 1 point travel into the kill threshold, then 3 points into Trapper for the hit damage versus load, so you deal 60% more damage to enemies. That's a very large multiplier. And that's pretty much it for Swipe. Now, of course, later on, you can get a lot of levels to Swipe. You can get +4 on the Relic and +1 on your gloves. So that could be +5. And essentially what you're going to do there is just invest into Aspect of the Panther for a juicy 25% more damage boost if you do get plus levels to skills. And that's pretty much it for Swipe. Now for work right here, TLDR, all we care about, the attack speed from Berserk and the flat damage, which is now converted into lightning damage, which is a huge boost in damage as well, right? We have the pull. This not only helps us in T4 Jurla, right, when we do go killer, it also helps clear, because what happens is we end up pulling enemies within our area of effect so that we can kill them. This increases our effective AoE significantly and makes it feel so much better. And we can bully things around too. First grab the cooldown, and then eventually we grab the 100% crit chance here. If you're wondering why I'm grabbing this instead of grabbing this, it's because this is, I think, 4 points in total to get to here. Well, this is 5 points because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's fine. And then eventually, if you manage to get like plus levels to Warcry somehow, you definitely want the crit chance, but that's fine. That's pretty much it for this setup here on Warcry. One moment here. Sorry about that. I had to sneeze real quick. So for Summon Wolf here, we only have a few specific things we care about. We mainly care about the health regen here, the health more percent here as well. Keep our wolf alive. Grab all of the percent melee damage from Howl, so we get 150% from it. Then 2 points into Battle Cry to make it last, I think, 6 seconds for the Wolf Howl. Then, of course, we grab Shaman's Bond to get percent health per attunement. So the idea is we used to stack minion percent life to keep our wolf alive in combat. But now that we are incentivized to stack attunement with Storm Scour, right, what we can do is we can actually forego most amount of percent HP on our gear and just stack attunement and take advantage of this. So right now we have 160% increased life, so we're 260% increased life for a wolf. And of course, if we combine that with a little bit of strength here or there, we can get some flat HP for a wolf, which all of that combined means that, of course, we can actually, you know, get our wolfie into the end game very easily and make sure he doesn't instantly die, which is great. Then for Frenzy Totem here, we care about Furious Cry. The idea is we put down our totem and it refreshes our howl. So instead of being a 10-second cooldown, it's actually a 6-second cooldown, which is much more efficient for us. And of course, 5 points in the lead to the pack. This gives us a massive 250% critical strike chance from our aspect of, from our frenzy thing. It's great, right? And of course, 3 points into Tethered, so we get the more damage, and then a bunch of points into Crit Multiplier. This gives us a very large amount of Crit Multiplier for free, which means we can scale Crit Multi very quickly and very easily. And that's pretty much it for Frenzy Totem. Then for Maelstrom, all we care about is to make stacks of Maelstrom so that we can get access to Wind Fury and Windswept. Beastmaster and most primalists don't have access to good movement skills for the most part, so it's nice to have the haste from this to make us just a little bit faster, right? 87% movement speed, which is an acceptable amount of movement speed when we don't have a movement skill. First, we get Frenzy all the time. We get stacks of dodge, which is cool. And then eventually we also get global stun chance per stack. This is absolutely broken. You can get like a 450% global stun chance so quickly with this. And it's absolutely broken. Hopefully one day they'll actually nerf it, because having all of that plus the shock means that we can shock most enemies out of actually moving, and makes our clear feel much better because we're stunning enemies and they're stopping their like they can't move while we're stunning them and stuff, right? And they can't attack us back. So it actually makes us feel tankier, thankfully. And that's pretty much it for the skills. Now let's talk about passives that are important. Passive tree, just care about stacking attunement, like I said, getting the dual wield node. Then beast, all points into Beastmaster. You don't care about Shaman, you don't care about Druid, all points into Beastmaster. And of course, like the aspect of the boar stuff, the Earth Sign strength, aspect of the shark. Grabbing this means that we don't have to invest into armor shred at all, although eventually you probably do want to sacrifice these points, put armor shred on your weapons when you eventually get the better weapons, right? And it also means that we can get rid of all this and then go for HP here as well, and like some other things as well. Then, of course, here we take 4 out of 5 points, Circle of Life. This gives a 20% chance on hit on boss to give us an aspect of the Shark Stack or kill. We mainly care about this for bosses, obviously. Grab a lot of aspects of the Shark effect, and then a lot of, then we grab Feeding Frenzy, which gives us 10 stacks. All of that combined means that we essentially armor shred cap, and we get a very large amount of attack speed and, of course, melee percent damage on top of our howl and all that too, right? Grabbing, of course, Natural Bond for the more companion health, so our companion doesn't instantly die. We grab Aspect of the Lynx, which gives us 125% crit chance, right? Whenever we use our Wolf's Howl, which is on top of all the other critical strike chance that we get. 10 points into a Viper Fangs, only because it gives us increased melee attack speed. That's all we care about. Then 6 points in Serrated Claws, gives us a lot of crit multi. Then, of course, 2 points in a Critical Bite, which keeps us topped off like this is an insane amount of leech, even with 2 points invested into it. And for the rest of the passives, stuff like Avian Shelter to get like physical res. so that we can dump physical res on gear and get more suffixes. Grabbing stuff like Wife in the Wilderness would make us a little bit tankier, and maybe eventually Hawk Wings for a little bit of dodge. We can start investing into dodge by putting a little more points into this, right? And that's pretty much it for this. Now, what you could do is take all the points out of this once you have enough crit chance to crit cap, and then go into Whirlpool. And then you can also put an extra point into Sleet Footed and then scale dodge a bit more, and then have like 40% chance to not get hit, which would be very nice in endgame. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the passives and stuff. Like I said, mainly you want to focus on getting as much HP and EHP as possible at this point, because we have plenty of damage to take down everything in the endgame. And then let's talk about gearing. So, of course, the main unique that you really want is Siphon of Anguish. Not only does it give you a nice melee leech buffer when you're not having aspect of the links up, it also gives you, of course, movement speed, resistance for the implicit, and also gives you Doom, which is 16% increased damage taken from for enemies by melee damage. Very strong for us, as we don't have any increased damage taken. So it's just 16% more damage, and eventually you can get one with LP and scale it that way, which is really good. Then for a helmet here, health regen for our minion. We need a decent amount of minion health regen so we can keep our boy alive. And then, of course, minion health would be there too, or attunement. This helmet's really good base because it gives us not only increased life, which is really good, right? It also gives us leech as well, which is great because the more leech, the better, right? And of course, grabbing HP eventually would be great on this. Amulet here, we want Jade Amulet because it gives us attack speed. More attack speed, the better the build feels, right? And of course, you could have like crit, multi, stuff like that, and then whatever suffixes you end up landing on it. For our weapons here, we run double Eagle Wings. Eagle Wings are really strong because with the amount of base crit that I currently have, we are currently almost crit capped by just having Eagle Wings on. And with a little bit of extra crit here or there, that'll crit cap us instantly, which is great. So you want melee attack speed, then eventually melee lightning damage, something like this. That's perfect, right? And then eventually you'd want armor shot on the suffix, so you can eventually solve yourself, give yourself a few extra points. Then the ring here, attunement, res, and then eventually crit chance and maybe lightning percent damage, but mainly probably crit chance and minion health or something like that. And eventually you want some strength, because not only would it start scaling your armor, it would also start scaling the flat HP on your wolf, so you want a little bit of strength as well. Chest here, attunement, lightning percent damage, HP, right? Belt here, minion health regen, a little bit of mana regen. I found at 10 mana regen I can sustain most things, but you want a little bit more mana regen than this so that you can sustain all of your stuff. But thanks to the fact that we're actually attunement stacking now versus before, we actually get a large amount of mana efficiency for our Warcry and for our Wolf Howl, and all of that means that we actually end up decently mana sustaining, right? But you want a little bit more mana regen than this, probably on the amulet, right? Then of course, Siphon of Anguish, gloves, exalted attack speed, minion health, attunement, crit chance, health, stuff like that. Boots, these are actually pretty good boots other than the Fizz Res. You'd want HP on them, and movement speed. You want as much movement speed as possible though, because of the fact that you have no movement skill, right? Then for the relic here, you can get plus levels of swipe, crit multi, attunement, and resistances. And then for idols here, all we care about is capping our resistances, getting some HP, getting some res. Probably just going to go all HP idols. We have plenty of damage with everything else we could do. Like, we have so much damage that we could very easily sacrifice all of our idol slots for HP idols and be completely fine. Of course, you could also run a Throne of Ambition if you want to stack armor a little bit more, but that's pretty much it for the build, and that's pretty much it for the video. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go play a different build. Bye.